the city council work session for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. Need to have an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll open with public comment. I have a note here that Devatea would like to speak.
He's in mute. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Loud and clear, Deb.
Okay. I'm on a iPad in Portland, so I just want to make sure that I can be heard. I don't know how the clarity is. Am I the only one to speak tonight?
I think
so.
Wow.
Well, we got,
That doesn't mean you have all night.
Oh, come on. I could tell you so many things. Anyway, overcoming the misinformation is my first item. I think we sent this to the vote of the people, and with people not knowing the complex issues and facts. So they have no idea really what they're voting on, and there's a lot of misinformation that has to be overcome because, you know, I mean, I don't have all the facts. I'm in 101 city council, and there, you know, I haven't graduated to 202 or 303 yet. And there's a lot of facts to be overcome, financials and so forth, to clarify the reason for wanting a police station in a city hall. So anyway, I want to, you know, get some feedback on that and how I can find out the support to get facts, not influencing the way people are voting, but facts. So that would probably be an Ashley question. And then the other thing I want to say is we really need to be looking at the big picture in overcoming this. We need to look at the future of Cannon Beach beyond all of us, because, you know, we're not going to be around a lot longer. I mean, I can speak for myself, probably, you know, I'm getting old. And when we look at this, we need to look at what are we leaving for the future? Wouldn't it be right to have funds and resources to make Cannon Beach a better place? An extra $1 million for emergency disasters as a buffer, have funds available with high functioning city operations. Not a mediocre situation, but a visionary. I think we need vision. Where are we going? What is the vision? You know, I really get the sense from listening to people and things that are going out on emails and so forth that, you know, there's a lot of sour grapes in this city. Get off my lawn type of mentality, no taxes. And it's kind of sounds like not looking at the big picture, like it's more focused on kind of selfish things and not trusting the city leaders that they elected. And it's kind of sour grapes. And it's like, nobody really wants to, I'm trying to uplift this into something more positive and like excitement for a new city hall and police station and taking care of the fire department and looking at a progressive society, looking beyond ourselves, looking to the future. The tourists are supporting us. It's true. Don't you think they want a better Cannon Beach? I think they do. I think I would happily pay $5 on a $100 meal to make Paradise a better place. This is a magical place. And it's not some place to just be kind of low class, looking like India, like the police station does. Are we so self-focused that we can't see that bigger picture? Without growth, it is death. So for the future, I'd like to see a modern new city hall with all the updated technology to join the present time. I'd like to see the police station get the best of everything because they deserve it. They're out there protecting us. I'd like to see the fire department getting the best. I'd like to see infrastructure top notch. I would like to see a workforce, I think we need housing for a workforce. And the foundation of Cannon Beach with fresh perspectives looking into the future. Now, I just moved here 3 years ago, so I have fresh perspectives, okay? And I am looking at it like a new venture of what we want to see for our future. Not a half-done city hall, not a half-done police department, not a half-done fire department, not a half-done school either. But a place compatible with nature and up to date. And I'm not talking about, I am not against development like to become seaside, but I want to do it right. I want you to do it right. I want you to be the change now for the future. I want you to have vision. That's what I feel. I want to inspire all of you with vision. You're the city leaders. We elected you. I think you should have made this decision because you've got 500 people out there at the most that might vote. Maybe if we're lucky to inspire them to vote, we'll get more. But I want you to get out there and inspire all of us for a better community and get out there and talk to the people because this sour grapes thing is just not acceptable. It's like, that's not helping Cannon Beach. And, you know, to talk down the city leaders and all that kind of stuff is not respectful, and I don't support it. And come up and, you know, I'm the only one talking tonight. Where is everybody? Come out here and speak your mind and be who you are and not talk behind people's backs. I don't like it. And do not lie about what this is. This is a pass-through tax. It is not going to cost the restaurants. It's a pass-through tax. And they're going to get 5% back on that 5%, and some help, if more help, if they need it. Totally supporting them. And then we'll look to the future to find infrastructure and housing for their employees. It goes both ways. We have to help each other. So please, please get out of this small thinking and expand your minds to something better. That's all I have to say. If somebody can address the facts part, because I really think it's great that Bruce came out today and answered that letter. And I just applaud you, Bruce, for doing that because you're our city leader. And going to the meeting this morning, doing all of that, I commend that. I think, you know, they want to hear from our leaders. And I don't care which way you're voting, but just get out there and talk to people. So that's what I say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay.
Thanks, Deb.
We should have a recording of that, and drive up and down the street with a megaphone.
Rusty, check our other attendees to see if there's any other comments. Nope. Okay.
Why don't you ask, you might want to ask if anybody else.
Yeah, if anybody wants to raise their hand and make a comment, you're welcome. Crystal Land.
Is that for me?
Hello, yes.
Hi, Sam. I just wanted to, I guess, address a couple things that Deb said, and that was the pass-through tax. It is partially a pass-through tax. This affects locals also. And she said, go bigger, go grander. Well, then let's do all the businesses. Let's do the art galleries. Let's do the jewelry stores. I can understand not doing grocery stores because it's not a luxury. Somebody mentioned that before, the luxury of, buying groceries or a pharmacy or whatever. But there are a ton of other businesses out there besides restaurants. So if we want to go bigger and grander, why not do that? Why just us? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Can we get your last name for the record, please?
Crystal Marshall.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Mary Beth?
There we go.
Hello.
Just took a while to get on. Mary Beth Cottle, 131 Ross Lane, Cannon Beach. I know that this is a topic for tonight, the location of City Hall, and I just want to voice my opinion that City Hall should be located outside the inundation zone. It's pretty important that the City Hall be in a safe place. There are so many functions that are important in emergency situations that will not be usable if we have a tsunami come through. There will be a lot of debris that will be washed over the building. Even if the building survives, it will be difficult to get in and out. And so my opinion is that the building needs to be located not in the inundation zone. And that's what I came to say tonight.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thank you.
Last call, anybody else? Okay, then. Now that I'm here, I'm awake. We'll move on to our main topic. City Hall Police Station discussion. We've been for a while, so Chris, you have.
Very little, because I don't know what to expect from this meeting, but as far as the comment that, you know, people don't know what the city is going to do with the funds. And up to this point, I can agree because there's not been any decision made regarding the city hall. But if the project is going to be the city hall, there is a tremendous amount of detail already available. It is available room by room. It is sort of equipment or what sort of capabilities each one of those rooms needs to have, and what the connection, what connection it has to have with the other spaces in the within the facility. So there is a detailed plan. It's not been acted upon by the council, but all that information is available. It'll be subject to whatever decision is made for what the council wants to move forward with. Also, we had a lot of discussion about different sites. And it seemed that everybody thinks that the current site is good for certain reasons, being in the downtown, centrally located, all those things. It does have the shortcoming of the being in the tsunami zone. But staff did send a recommendation to council that when we look at all of the things that are in play with this, that and the potential opposition that would continue on for some of the other locations, that we felt that a city hall police station located on the east side of this facility, we could do some things to try to raise it a little bit higher, but that would be probably the best compromise with the sites, because some of the sites that are out of the tsunami zone have other issues with them, be it cost, location. So anyway, those are a couple of things. I'm able to answer any questions you have as far as what the program says. We talked about size and I sent you some information that shows it's really a summary of all the spaces. And so if we want to talk about size, I think looking at that and then cutting back on anything we don't feel is appropriate. That's a way to get to that, if that is a question. And that's about it. I'm here to answer any questions that council might have.
I'd like to make a statement about some of this. I've heard people say, why now? Why are you rushing through? And you never heard about this. I was just going back to the list that was provided. Since early 2018, there have been 33 council meetings in which City Hall was discussed. 33 meetings. To say you've never heard of it is disingenuous. In addition to the 33 meetings, there have been 12 reports prepared and submitted. Reports and analyses, including geotechnical, architectural layouts, and all those things, and site evaluations. And one of the other comments, why suddenly you come out and say you're going to tack this on to the fire department. We talked about food and beverage tax back in late 2018. So this is not a new thing. We did put it off for about a year now because the council could not reach agreement. We had other things that were very pressing, COVID not being the least of those. But in today's agenda and report, there is a line where you can go and look at every one of these reports. And there's a lot of detail there that we've all been through. And frankly, we couldn't reach agreement, but I think staff has come up with a compromised position that is well worth considering. And that's really the subject of today's meeting. So I guess I'd thank staff and Bruce, of course, for getting together and saying, well, here's a compromise. It's probably the most acceptable to the public and yet the lowest elevation of any site we've looked at. So we've done a lot of work and it's not a clear decision. If it was, we'd have decided a year and a half, 2 years ago. So.
Deb mentioned that there had been another meeting this morning. Where was that and what was the topic?
It's the meeting that George Better has on Wednesday morning.
Wednesday
morning.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I reiterate what Mike just said, that the evaluation page that we have is very insightful. I'm glad you put that up. That said, I think the location topic is the one that we need to focus on first tonight. And I think we should go around and take our comments on that. I feel like, and I'm not speaking for everybody else, but I feel like in my sense, this was the best second choice. It's my first choice and everybody else's other first choices can't quite fit. This one seems to be the universal second choice. It does have, I'm talking about Gower Street, where the current city hall is, and the space to the east of that. It has the history of location. It is central, everybody knows it, so that's valuable. It has reasonable soils and ground to work on. It's got space, I think is adequate. The only true drawback is the emergency tsunami issue, which is one that we've been focused on for a long time, but it just takes a rethink of what an emergency is and how rare that one disaster will be. It could be tomorrow, but it's still once every 300 years, theoretically. So if we build a new city hall and it gets washed away a month after we open it, yeah, that's a problem. But for all the other emergency things that we're learning about how to handle and with our our staff that's really up on this now and how we refigured how the chamber can be used for emergencies and how the other spaces are valuable within the city hall, I think is very important. So I'm in support of working with Gower Street as our location.
And Sam put it well. It's certainly not my first choice, but it's my best second choice.
I agree. I think the fact that the employees are willing to continue to work in this location says a great deal about where they would like to see it. But I'd like to see it as reinforced as much as possible so that it can withstand as much as it is going to be blown at it if we have a tsunami, and probably raised as well. So that means we will have to have some variances on height and so forth. But I think that's minor compared to some of the other problems we would face in any of the other locations. But yeah, if we can do it maybe east of here, a little bit east of here, where it's a little bit higher, not much, but a little. But I do think that that's the best location.
Need to recognize it'll cost a bit more than the studies
Mhm.
that we're looking at because we need to raise it, reinforce it, address protection around it. But if we can agree, we can move forward and begin to address the ultimate design and use and application of the building.
I did send out to all of you the PVS program on the big one. And did you all see it? Yeah. So I think really Portland is planning for the big one and how utilities will actually be out there. I just don't know how we can really protect ourselves from that level. And as I said before, if everybody's willing to put money into a building on this location, I would agree with that. I don't want to see it get too tall. I think that if you look at tsunami buildings that have been built, they are not tall. They're wider or longer and wider. They're not tall. So that would be like everyone is saying, it's not my first choice, but I want to keep the cost down. I want to keep the size down. And we do have the other option up for public works if we need it.
I'm absolutely in support of this location. I have always been in support of it. I suppose I'm in the minority in that it was my first choice, but it sounds like we have consensus, unanimous consensus about at least exploring that. And I'd like to, I guess if I had a choice, it would be to get the police station up and running as soon as possible for a new structure there. If that's possible. It may be that we need to build it in conjunction with the city hall, but anyways.
I think the other thing Bruce asked for was if there's any analysis, recommendations on the size. Quite some time ago, requested to look at the program that SOG put together and go kind of department by department or function by function and see if there were areas we felt could be reduced. I've done that and found some places I thought we could reduce it, but I don't remember now my total. I've got it in my notebook here, but I came down with
Sorry.
much less than about 700 square feet. I felt we could get rid of.
Well, I looked at the functions, the office, the space of the rooms and the functions today. And I really don't have a problem with what they're proposing, because when you look at it, it looks like it's going to increase by something like 5,400 more square feet than it is now. And and most of that is taken up by the police department, not all of it, but I think about 1,500 feet of it
About half of it
is going to be taken up by the police department. And the police department, I think we've all agreed, needs more space. A
Absolutely.
lot more space. And when you look at the size of the offices, some of the offices are smaller, and the proposed offices are smaller than they are now. And some overall square footage is smaller than what is proposed, or maybe it's 20 square feet more than what they have now. I mean, it's not an oversized building as far as I'm concerned, especially if you're thinking about a building that's going to last 50 to 70 years. I don't see a problem with the space.
I don't feel comfortable trying to downsize a building that's built for the future, where growth is inevitable.
I mean, if you're thinking about, this is good.
The only way I think I could accept that is if some sort of plan was made for an addition in the future, something like that. Otherwise, I really don't support downsizing the recommended structure.
Neither.
A lot of effort went into determining the proper size with interviews with each department as to how they function, what they do, how they saw the future, and what their requirements were, and what their current limitations were. And based on those interviews, sizing was developed, and then the interrelationship between, what departments do you work with, which ones work with you, that was part of it. And I think when you look at the analysis, cost, it goes to this bottom line cost, but about $4 million of that is soft costs. If you go to what people think about, cost per square foot, that's for an empty building and does not include those financing costs or the architectural costs, all these other things. When you go through it and really analyze it, they seem very reasonable. I'm concerned that we've lost upwards of $750,000 by delay.
Mhm. That's unavoidable, unfortunately.
When you look at the sizes of these offices, 140 square feet, that's 10 by 14, right?
Yep.
I mean, the size of the average man is 6 feet. So, I mean, it's not a huge size for a building. The city manager's office is going to go from a current 170 square feet down to 143 square feet. So it's not like they're asking for huge spaces. They're just asking for some breathing room to work in. I don't see a lot of, there's some area in here for storage, because the storage that we're using now is in the garage. So there, for instance, A-Trap is going to have some storage. The farmer's market is going to have some storage. But again, it's only for farmer's market's only 60 square feet for storage, which isn't a lot for the equipment and things that we have. So they're not asking for an overabundance of space, I don't think.
I don't at all.
I'll chime in here because I was the one that pretty much, the program is technically a starting off point for a designer. You look at the program and say, okay, this is the stuff that is standardized numbers for what a room should be, or office should be, or storage should be for that facility. And that is all, an excellent place to start from. The challenge that I've run into, and this comes from my training, which is several decades old, but it's still the training that I came up with. What I was taught as an architect, what Bruce is calling gross or grossing, we used to call transition space. It's all the hallways, all of the interaction from one room to the other, and it's not wasted, it's the structural space. It's all understandable, but we were trained to reduce the transition space as much as possible. You start with a bubble diagram that shows this is where all your big required spaces are, offices, conference rooms, all those funny little spaces that you need. And then you figure out how do you fit those all together with the minimum amount of transition, because that's the transition space is what puts the cost into the spaces you need, because you're adding square footage just to get from one space to the other. So that's where I have some concern about. But again, I know what the program is. The program tells you these are the spaces you need. The grossing calculation is what you might expect in the, I'm not going to say, in the standard situation. So then you find an architect who hopefully will figure out how to do that more efficiently. So that's where I'm going to be a stickler as to how can you design what we need as efficient as possible. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. I agree that a lot of the office space that are listed there are quite appropriate. In fact, there's a couple there that I would adjust larger. A few I would adjust down, and a few I would adjust larger. It all depends on how they relate to the other spaces that are important to that division or task orientation. Finance, you want all the finance people in one space kind of thing. That's a good example. But they all can have their own offices and they can all adjoin efficiently. One little thing while I was trying to put my thoughts together today, I noted if you take this building, which is 10,000 square feet-ish, and reverse the calculation for gross floor area, 1/3 of this entire building is transition space. And I would actually argue that it's more because we got that stupid garage and some other wasted access. But that explains to you that of the required spaces that are in the program, you're actually comparing it to a 7,000 square foot building rather than a 10,000 square foot building. Because once you add on that gross square footage for the transition space, it brings it up to 10,000. It's just a calculation. So at this point, the program is the tool that the architect will say, okay, this is where I start from when I start designing. Of course, then they'll come in and ask a whole bunch of questions and start talking about that. It is confusing to folks. This is another, Mike brought this up, when we add in soft costs to the entire project. We need an entire project bottom line number, but you also need to be very clear what is the construction cost, because that's what people understand. You say, I'm building a new house, how much is it going to cost? It's going to cost me $700,000. Oh, wow, that's an expensive house. They don't really think about adding I suppose in your case, that's sale. You're building a new house, you think of it as the square foot cost per square foot. At least that's what I do, and that's when I talk to folks, and how much is it gonna cost per square foot, because that's the big deal. That's the one that's important. You still need to show the soft cost, because we're gonna keep asking people for how much that is. That's all I have right now.
And if I can, to your point, I mean, when people are focusing on the cost per square foot for Gower is $659 and $572. But when you get down to soft costs, which there's like a standard cost for this space. But because we're on the coast, there's a certain additional cost associated with trying to get contractors and subcontractors to come out here. There's a time frame that it says, well, as a matter of fact, these costs were good for this time. If this building is being constructed right now, these prices are valid. So you have a price in there to, to cover the fact that, yes, if we built it today, it would be this, but we're not building it today. So you put in that additional cost. Those are the kind of things that go into the soft costs. And when I'm doing a project, I don't like to surprise anybody. And so I've seen projects where they finish the building and then there's nothing to put in it. And then all of a sudden you've got to find in the general fund, whatever percent cost of what the building was, because nobody included the cost of the furnishings and those sort of things. So what we're presenting is a total cost on the project. Many of the costs are soft costs, and those are associated with, be it if we're out here or whatever, and other kind of contingencies would need to be included in it. So that's to your point, Sam, that's
a very healthy number for contingencies in this. That is smart, so that you're covered if you run into problems, things, like price of plywood, for instance. We've run into that already. That doesn't mean that you will necessarily utilize every bit of that. So these are kind of, once we adjust for the year's delay, these are pretty conservative costs from my estimation. And that's the way a public utility, a public entity like the city should really plan that way, rather than going back and saying, oh, sorry, we need more money. I'd rather find out that we didn't need all that.
And I totally agree with that. I'm trying to get us to present things so that they can see the main sections. Cost per square foot, what that will be. What are the soft costs as far as furnishings and post-construction? And then what are the financial costs? So that they're separate, so the folks that work by one specific number know which number to look at.
And there are detailed tables that have exactly that information.
Yeah.
So we can provide that.
Okay, and that will help us avoid some of the confusion that comes around the gossip circle that comes back at us with, $34 million, it's going to cost that much. Oh, wait, no, how'd it get there? Well, they're adding everything up because that's what they heard.
Yeah, this is just volume one, this summary. There's two more volumes that detail quite extensive.
And as far as, and this is my bugaboo, as far as what it's going to cost, in a year from now, is what it's going to cost a year from now. Has nothing to do with what we're trying to estimate for it today. If nobody understands that,
Don't go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
so,
All right.
so, cool.
Did we talk about it being two separate buildings?
That's discussion. In fact, I would I would support the idea of two separate buildings just because I think that gives us the opportunity for some scheduling effort of how things are built. There's pros and cons on both sides of that. But it gives us the chance to get the police station up and going quicker.
Can I address that, son?
Uses up more space too.
Yeah, it uses up more space. There's a certain amount of cost to make it two separate buildings. But I'm not sure what's driving the discussion about two separate buildings because staff's preference is that we all stay in one building. And so I don't know if it may be maybe 2-3 months in the time it would take for design and for construction of the whole building, as opposed to building the police station and then doing the city hall. So it might save that much time, but we've already been talking about it for a couple of years. So I mean, I would ask Jason, is that with the benefit of being in the building and as many times as your people come over to finance and Jen and everybody else, is there a benefit to having, saying to be in your own separate building and get in there 3 months, 6 months earlier, which I think is probably about it, or to be, within the structure that you folks intermingle with us and vice versa all the time? No.
Well, there's always a benefit to the sooner the better, but the only other concern that would come up immediately would just be access to the police department and security issues. But those we've discussed before, and those would be the only issues where evidence room is and having any other interior access to the police department, which we don't have now. We have a separate entrance, so I don't see why that wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, there's those same kind of things, and it would be designed actually better than anything that you have now.
So are you saying are you preferring to be in one building with the rest of the city hall? Or would you prefer to be in a separate building?
No, I think together would be fine.
Is there a difference in the strength of the building depending on, I think the police department, there's a requirement for a certain number 4, I guess it is.
Category 4, yes.
And City Hall wouldn't have to be quite that.
I
But
would want to see the whole building. I would want to see the whole building as category 4.
We're already building it in a less than optimum.
Well, cost is a good reason.
well, if we have an emergency operations center in City Hall, and we want to make sure that that the City Hall is reinforced enough so that we can use the emergency operations center.
What's the difference in cost?
About 10%.
Attachment C.
About 10%, and it's in the foundation and the structural elements.
That I think is very much a detailed discussion that might take some, once we get into where we're putting things and what goes with what, and we have an architect that is starting to get us initial components. In my mind, having a breezeway between two buildings is no different than having one big connected building. It helps. One of the things that I'm going to strive to influence is that however this building is laid out, that it has the appearance that the community, I think, is going to appreciate. And that would be something a little more residential in scale. It could be very easily done as one building, but looking like several. You don't have to have the monolithic type building. You can do sections that are joined by more of the building in the backside. You've got a unique potential on this piece of property. It's actually 2 pieces of property, but it's very linear. There there are a lot of little detail orientations that will work, I think, far better and more efficiently for the structure that could be here than what is here, obviously. This is just a big box. So I guess I'm trying to get around to Robin's concern about one or two buildings. The discussion came from, I think, the idea that we were going to get a portable for the police department anyway. That's where the discussion came from, because it was possible to do a second building over on the east end. It's also still possible to do a second building over there and then join it with, a progressive construction. I don't know. There's a lot of potential ways that this could be sorted out. I have a reference for construction that in itself is essentially category 4. It's the CLT construction style. The benefit with that is it's fast. The way it's developed, the foundation is actually the longest part of the construction, which is interesting. And they actually build the building somewhere else and then truck it down in Lego bits and poof, comes up somehow. I don't know all the details, but it's something I think we should look into once we get some concepts together. The benefit is that it's local-ish, regional company, super efficient. And what was the other point about that? It's category 4 in its construction. Sorry.
I agree. I think it's a construction process or style that we ought to instruct our designers to take a good hard look at. I think there are advantages to it. Hit most of them. Buildings being done that way. And they tend to go up faster than just the sticks, studs and sheet plywood. This is different. This cross-laminated construction is much stronger. And you're right, so they build panels elsewhere and truck them in. So again, that gets into the weeds here, and I don't know we need to do that, but
No, I don't think so.
I think they should be instructed to consider that when we start looking at design.
I guess we're coming, now that we've got our location sort of confirmed, we are in consensus with that. Wouldn't it be appropriate to start putting together a scope of work for an architectural firm? Is that the next step, or?
For the purpose that we're here tonight, I think that's the first or the next step we need to do. And that's do we have enough detail with the information that we have and whatever decisions are made by council to be able to say, this is how we're going to spend the funds. So that's kind of for tonight. Once that's decided, and if it's approved, then we would go to a similar process to what we're doing with Cannon Beach Elementary. And that I would, again, recommend that this structure be done with CMGC. And we will already have contracts for both of those and RFPs for both, because we're developing them for Cannon Beach Elementary. So once this is approved, again, with the funding and whatever your decisions are, we would then, Sam, probably start doing the RFP for the architect, followed by maybe 6 weeks to a month or 2 months later, the CMGC. But we'll be able to move much quicker because everything will be developed from Cannon Beach Elementary project.
I think it would be appropriate to do on a regular meeting, a public hearing, as far as the decision that we've kind of come to as far as the location. just so that people are aware of that, we can convince about it a little bit.
I mean, some type of vote.
Make it formal. Yeah, somehow.
Ratify it.
Yeah, just, this is a work session. Yes, we can kind of make guidance towards staff, but we should probably do this publicly. We'll give a chance for some comment, pro and con. That also will give us more opportunity to sort out what our next steps might be. And perhaps create a rudimentary schedule.
We want to have a special meeting for that within the next week or so, or do we want to wait until October to do it?
If it works, I don't.
I'm just thinking
I have
of
no
the
problem
election.
having a special meeting. That's what the rest of you wish.
Could end up being a long one, so maybe it's advisable to have a separate meeting.
Mayor, if I can, because of some of the comments that I'm seeing on Facebook and other things that, I don't know what the city is going to do with the funds. I would recommend that we try to do something sooner rather than later, because I'm seeing people say that, well, I agree, they're not telling us, so I'm going to vote no, that kind of thing. And again, all the information is here. That we do have, extremely detailed information. So again, I would recommend sooner rather than later.
I think it would also be, excuse me, Mike, it would also be a really good chance for us to explain the design process and how long that's going to take and where will be the opportunities for public input, where will be the decision points, stuff like that.
When we do, we should put together this kind of exhibit. This stuff you handed out, but not with all these different options. Just narrow it down to the East Gower and those costs. If people start, oh, this could be cheaper, that could be, better. And if we just then focus on even the, some of the conceptual layout. But problem is showing that suddenly that's the design.
Yeah.
It's really not a design.
Yeah.
It just says this many cubic feet, not square feet, cubic feet will fit on this space. And to get that on that space, Army zone, it's wise to build 2 levels anyway. Sam's point, we want this to look like Cannon Beach when we're done with it. We don't want a government looking building. And that's got to be emphasized in any discussion with the architect. And if they can give it more shape and contours and character, the better.
What you're saying, I think that it is possible for us to distill some of this information and create a pamphlet, a booklet or something that has all this information that can be mailed out to, all the voters, all the residents, so that everybody does see, okay, oh, this is what they're talking about doing. And here's all the information, and we'll be able to answer any questions that they might have. So if that's of interest, we can start working on that now.
Should you check with Ashley to see if that's a conflict ethically at all with the city providing that?
Well, as long as it's factual, there's not an issue with it, and it's not, and we would be preparing it for council. Well,
let me just jump right in here. The other thing is, this is what we'll be doing whether we get the tax or not.
But during the time where we're having the vote, isn't there a rule about not?
What Ashley said at the last meeting, I didn't quite get that sense. I think as long as we're focusing on the facts and not promoting one side or the other as far as the tax vote, this is what we are doing. Whether
I just want to be careful.
Yeah,
No, it's just the facts, ma'am. I mean,
Yeah.
literally.
we can't say, so you should really go out and vote for this. That would be.
Yeah.
My concern is that staff's putting it together. And,
Well, they have a right to do just that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as Ashley says it's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be very careful.
No, I agree. And that, I asked that when she was here, specifically because I was concerned that could we talk about this openly?
But developing
We were
a
doing-
pamphlet's another thing.
That is explaining the project that we're going to do.
It's the facts of the project. I mean, there's not going to be any advocacy.
The thing I'm trying to get back to is it's kind of irrelevant to the tax. Because the tax will pay for it or it won't. If it doesn't, we got to figure out some other way to pay for it.
Mhm.
But by that time, we'll have really good information, which is a far better way to pass a bond. So when we get to this, I don't know if we would be able to push it all together for May, but give us a year, we might have a really good design with really hard numbers and put that all together, we'll have something for a bond.
And Robin makes a really good point. And so that you know, anything that I write goes to Ashley before it goes out. So we would do the same thing with this, she or somebody in her firm would read.
Yeah, I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we just had her blessing.
Oh, no, it won't happen without her blessing,
Okay,
because we're personally on the hook if we make a mistake on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What else can we do?
Spring. So
Sorry. Not good at the order.
oh, okay.
I'm just talking
I
about
thought we were done.
this stuff.
I mean, I'd still like to see us have a meeting before the October 5th meeting, because I'd like to get some information out that's factual to people who might be thinking about voting in the election and the ballots go out pretty dark. So I
When do they go out?
don't have enough facts. I want to make sure they do have enough facts to make a decision one way or the other.
Yeah,
Startup going out on the 13th.
And the 13th, actually, they actually got the 13th.
So, you're thinking about later this month?
yeah.
28th is a Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the month.
I think the 28th is fine with me.
The room is available Tuesday.
That's good staff.
It's possible. We probably will be able to have it by the 20th.
And a half, so.
Maybe by the 5th. Well, actually, no, it'll be around that time. We'll get it out.
Okay.
What was that?
Sure.
28th is okay. All right.
I just asked Rusty if we'll get it out and he goes, sure.
Well,
Get Jeff to help you.
Really important.
PowerPoint.
Guys are gonna say he'll turn it into a PowerPoint.
Oh, we can just then print it off.
Yeah.
do you need to reiterate what we were talking about, or are we okay?
I think we're taking information from this, we're tailoring it down to this site and the existing program. I would put in that the program is like at 90% or something, because there will be adjustments as we go. There were some locations, for example, when we did this, the program, it was, I would say that the HRAP program was much more robust with some of the side things that they were doing. So it allowed for a workroom of 330 square feet. I don't think we're going to need that. Some of those things, so we can take some of those spaces out. So, but I would leave it as the program as is.
Yeah, that's what I'm
For now.
So. in the Design process, program is pretty much. Right, anyhow, so, okay. there's no parts to this, but
Working on the deck.
But, one of the things is scheduling is kind of, if we could get, at least some of the, initial hard points. The process for hiring an architect and the process for the CMD.
GC.
Sam.
I'm not gonna get that.
No.
So those are at least lined out,
Mhm.
because that will lay out when the design process can get public. And that's when people are gonna want to know.
Mhm.
They want to be able to look forward to that part. Okay. Obviously, one of those real process charts is going to be somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and it'll be a simplified Gantt chart.
Are we saying a meeting on the 28th
Mhm.
at 6?
6 is what we do. Now. Okay, anybody have anything else on the topic at hand?
Thank you very much for this direction.
It took 32 meetings to get here,
I know.
34 or whatever.
34 as of today.
Okay, get to the order. Donna?
Okay. I was asked yesterday about the spraying and I didn't really have the locations specific, so Greenwood sprayed intensely in the Warren Road area, just past the gate, all the way to the Ecola Creek Forest Reserve. Creeks have been flagged as no spray zones. Such a heavy spray, this person said, he had to take a shower after being up there to just make sure that potential residue didn't affect him or his family.
We'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
I would like to add that we have coffee with the counselors on Monday for all of those that are viewing us today.
It'll be a whole different discussion.
10 a.m. Monday.
Anything else? Go to the order?
I think we should go out and celebrate. We've got a location. Yeah.
And sit on the wall, drink some Boone's Farm.
Yeah.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you. Great.